Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. We're here, episode 40 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. Today we got a great show for you as usual. We welcome back our friend Wil Horneff, black belt out of Training Grounds Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in New Jersey there. And as usual here, I got my trusty sidekick Byron here with me. How are you, Byron?
Gary, I'm doing great. I just had a crazy training session this morning. The humidity was extremely high, and so was the heat. And I felt like I jumped out in a pool when I got off the mat. It was a bit much.
It had got so bad that I thought either Byron or I were going to dislocate a hip because the mat was so slick. Every time whoever had top position went to post with a leg, it slid out. So,
yeah.
Being in the bottom position wasn't a bad idea today.
It was good training for that. If I ever get attacked and I'm on the ice, like if you go to those kid shows, it's like Mickey Mouse on ice, and if Mickey Mouse comes at me, I'm ready.
Or one of the parents. Parents.
I'm more ready for Mickey Mouse to get in it with me there, because I've been training a lot in the ear chokes and that sort of thing.
BJJ for self-defense.
Gary, you just went to a seminar yesterday. What was that like?
Oh, I tell you, had a great seminar yesterday at Fox Fitness. Jake Fox up there had brought in Ralph Gracie, and I tell you, it was one of the better seminars I've ever went to. We really worked closed guard in the Ghee, how to break posture down, working on your chokes. But the biggest thing was I really got out of it the details on how to break that posture down and keep that posture broken. As you know, that's so important. So
yeah.
It was a great seminar, and anybody in Wichita, Kansas who didn't get a chance to go to it, you missed a great seminar. And anybody who gets to train with holes there on a regular basis is going to be a very good grappler with great fundamentals.
Yeah, I wish I could have made it, but I had other obligations. So
yeah, it was a great time.
I'm sure I'll be paying the price for it later.
Well, I showed you the posture break.
Yes, Gary doesn't hoard the knowledge. I didn't learn it. I didn't spend that amount of time learning the information. So, but we've got a great interview for you guys today. We talk about a lot of great stuff. We talk about self-defense quite a bit. We talk about the current state of jiu-jitsu and the rules. And we're lucky. Will recently just took a referee's course. And that's interesting to hear him talk about that.
And then the neat thing is, too, we can't get this with all our interviews because not all our interviews have been actors. But we get to hear some funny behind-the-scenes stories of not just The Sandlot, but other movies that Will has been in. Yeah.
So, if you don't know who Wil Horneff is, he was in the easy way to say the movie Sandlot, which you haven't seen. You should go see because it's hilarious. It's about a group of kids, neighborhood kids playing baseball. I mean, it happens all over the place, but the different funny things that happen to them and a little mini adventure that things happen as a kids, and so it's really it's like a cult classic movie. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
If you've seen it, I mean, definitely check it out if you haven't. I don't know where you could get it. If it's on. I imagine you can get it on Amazon or whatever, but find it. It's definitely worth the hour and a half or whatever it is, and it's a classic movie. I think you're missing out. Yeah, you're missing out definitely. If you haven't seen it. And he's he's like in the rival baseball team.
Yeah, he's the bully.
Him and the pitcher throw insults at each other.
Yeah, him and the catcher.
Catcher.
Catcher Porter there.
Yep, and he does give some funny stories about some behind the scenes action, and also about a different movie he was in. It's pretty hilarious. So, Gary, before we get too busy into the show, we could thank our sponsor, Fujisports.com. Got some great stuff there. I've been wearing the rash guard that they hooked us up with. I've got the Moco, and I saw Gary in a gi the other day.
Yeah, I had my Fuji gi on yesterday for the seminar, so it was great. I love Fuji products.
Yep, and it's not every day you get to see Gary in a gi because he's He's basically a no-gi guy. But, you know, to Gary's credit, when it comes, if he's getting an opportunity to learn something and it's going to be in the gi, he's going to show up, he's going to learn it. Like, he's not going to miss that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, the game translates back and forth.
Yeah.
What I can learn in each, and I do train in the gi maybe 3 or 4, 5 times a year. So,
Yeah.
But no, I'm not going to miss a seminar or a chance to train if I have to put the gi on. No problem.
And you rolled just fine. You had the base of your gi game down before you switched to the no gi.
Yeah, but I started in the gi, so it's really no different.
And I think in the interview, Will even mentions like it's okay to have when you have the gi to still have like a no gi style.
Yeah,
not depend on that lapel and your grips. Like
and that's
100%.
Actually my style.
Yeah,
really, with the gi on, it's still the same no gi style. I don't change over too much.
Gary, how about a quote of the week here? I've got one. Jacques Regat. The quote is, "Don't forget that I cannot see myself. My role is limited to being the one who looks in the mirror." And first glance, it's not really a jiu-jitsu quote, but really, you can't see yourself the way other people can see you.
Yeah.
So if somebody's giving you some coaching advice or some tips, they could see things that you're not picking up on maybe, and it comes down to being coachable.
Yeah, you keep an open mind, you listen to others, and knowledge from others is a big thing right there. Keep your mind open and take advice.
Absolutely, it's a big thing in jiu-jitsu. You've got to accept the advice that people give you in the tips. If it's coming from a good source.
Yeah, definitely make sure it's coming from a good source.
And
you don't want it just from the guy you met at Walmart wearing a tap-on shirt who told you he's a black belt.
But yeah, you've got to. I mean, the only way you see yourself is like, through the mirror, or maybe through some competition footage you had, and that's still through a lens of you looking at yourself. Like, you're not going to look at it objectively. You're going to see you, and you're going to, I was close to doing my move. Well, somebody might say, well, no, that move wasn't going to work. And the guy defended it really well,
Yeah.
So the third party telling you, like maybe even second party, I guess, from outside telling you that, hey, we should change some things, and this is what you should maybe think about doing. That's often some of the best advice you can get.
Yeah, yep. Keep your ears open and take that advice, try it out, and see what happens.
Yep, and that music is rolling in, Gary, so I guess we better move on to the article of the week.
The article of the week.
We've got from the JiuJitsuTransformation.com, to wash or not wash your belt. And when I saw the title of the article, I knew what it was going to say, because I couldn't imagine finding a pro not washing your belt article.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more of a cultural thing than an actual written down, like, don't wash your belt. But I'm guilty, Gary.
Yeah,
I have not washed my belt.
I've been guilty. I have washed my belt, but probably not as often as I should.
So I read this article a few days ago, and I'm going to start. I didn't wash my belt last time because it was a dumb excuse, but my wife had some clothes in the wash machine. I'm going to wear my white gi, and I have a brown belt, and she has some some white clothes, and I didn't want to mix the brown in with it. So I mean, if it's just my gi, I'll throw it in there. That's fine. But if you think about it, you wear a belt for years.
Oh yeah.
And it goes from being on and being people with sweaty hands and on the sweaty mat. I mean, sometimes the mat's so sweaty. Like this morning, we were slipping and falling.
Yeah. You think about how much the thing's almost like a towel. It's going to soak up all the sweat, all the fungus right there on the mat.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then
dirty, dark gym bag is where mine goes.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it goes into the dark gym bag till you get home, and a lot of times you're grabbing the belt, set up sweeps or control. Somebody's going for mount as they're coming up high. That belt's coming across your face. It definitely will attract fungus.
The article is interesting because he's a microbiologist. So you get that perspective and that information that there's some real dangers with not washing your belt, and it's not like it's one thing if I do something that could endanger myself, but it's not that. It's like I could endanger the people I train with.
Yeah, you're endangering your training partners.
So, I mean, I think back at sometimes when you get a gym that has the battle ringworm, and they clean the mats real good, and everybody washes their gis real well, and then
they're still getting it.
Yeah, they battle it for like a few months, and then they get everybody's cleaned up and it's gone. Finally, it took like 2 months to get it out of here. Maybe part of that routine is, hey guys, you need to go wash your belts, and that I don't know where that comes from. Like, you'll wash away your knowledge.
Yeah, like they were talking about the miss right there. And I know when I first started, I was told never to wash my belt.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first things I was told when I was asking
dirty.
advice. Yeah.
And that's what in the article, they talk about how they used to train on the dirt surface. And
they train on the dirt, and the more you train, the darker your belt got, which, led to, was your knowledge increased as your belt got darker.
Yeah. But it's funny because I don't see any actual... I'm not the type of person who would think that my belt, there's knowledge in my belt. I'm not like a superstitious person. So, but I've done this. I've been suckered into the not washing my belt crowd. So, I can't explain why I would not wash my belt anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you think about it. It's like, do you want to train with a guy who doesn't wash his gi?
Yeah. Or only washes like 95% of his gi.
Yeah.
And leaves 5%
that little
dirty.
Area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
So, I'm sold. So, mine's going to be getting washed.
Yep.
I don't know. I think after I wash it like 3 or 4 times, basically the color that will bleed out.
Yeah, then the color, you won't have to worry about it.
So I think I'll probably just wear a blue or a black gi for a couple of times in a row.
Yeah, or if you just want to turn your white gi brown.
Or like a light brown.
Yeah.
That's what it basically would happen. I'm not going to go for that, Like that old song. Can't go for that. Doo-doo-doo. But it's an interesting article, and if you're a little conflicted, that's okay. I guess it's easy to understand, but I swing by the website and check it out. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, thejujitsutransformation.com. The article is called To Wash or Not to Wash Your Gi, and the overall consensus is to wash your gi.
2 thumbs up to wash your gi.
So... I can, think about the one, I don't think that I stink when I roll. I try to be decent hygiene, that's kind of a big thing. But if you do have your face in my belt,
which will happen,
I apologize because I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah.
So, come on, guys. Let's
wash our belts.
Let's change it up a little bit here. There's no magical powers in the funguses and bacteria that are in your belt. They're not going to help you guys roll. It's the hard work
and training. It could help
in
the street self-defense type situation.
It could. Yeah, being stinky then is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Leave me alone. I'm a stinky guy. It's like the skunk philosophy.
Yeah. Nobody gets near the skunk. If I see a skunk out in the woods, I'm going the other way.
We have a fun interview for you. Stay tuned to the very end. He's got a hilarious story about a movie he was on set.
Don't want to miss that.
Absolutely. And he's got lots of great training advice for you guys, so we're happy to have him on the show. Here is Wil Horneff. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Wil.
Yep, it's great to have you back.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's great to have you back on. We had you on the podcast a few episodes back on the injury podcast. You were sharing a story about when you hurt your back. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, man. That was a crazy time in my life, but thank God it's over.
Definitely. Nobody likes to have an injured back, and we're glad that you're back on the mat, sir.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you train at, and what got you into jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Wil Horneff. I'm the head instructor at Training Grounds Jiu-Jitsu and MMA in Westwood, New Jersey. I started the school probably about the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I got my black belt friend Ralph Gracie. Spent a lot of time, probably up to purple belt training under Renzo Gracie, and then, because I was always, moving around doing different stuff, I was never being able to basically stay one place too long, which is kind of a bummer. But on the flip side, I had so many good, training partners and different experiences that I kind of got a different perspective on things as well. And currently the school is it's doing really well. I got about 4 brown belts underneath me, and things are just getting better every month. That we're kind of cracking away at things.
Sounds good. What got you into jiu-jitsu?
Well, when I was Jeez, I was one of those kids that was always into all of the, martial arts films and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And, by the way, like these days, every once in a while I throw out a reference to Jean-Claude Van Damme to one of my students, and they'll be like, who? I'm like, Jean-Claude Van Damme is. It's like, gosh, I feel old, So, Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and Bruce Lee movies. And so I kind of grew up watching that kind of stuff. And so I always wanted to participate in some kind of martial arts. And when I was probably in my mid-teens, I started boxing at a gym in Paterson, New Jersey called Lou Costello's. And one of my friends who actually started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was like, hey, man, come on, let's go spar. Let's go do something. Let's see how your boxing works out. And, at this point, I had really no conception of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And within like a couple seconds, he took me down to the ground and choked me. And I was like, whoa, what was that, And he kind of showed me the UFC. And this is back in the days when it was just no rules. Guys, elbowing each other in the nose, punching each other in the groin, just do crazy stuff. And it was really bloody. And I was like, whoa, look at this stuff. And it kind of changed my perspective on what constitutes just real fighting, especially if you're going up and you have no conception of any kind of ground game whatsoever. And all the martial arts films and, Rocky and all that stuff. So I was immediately hooked and really interested in it. And what happened was at that point, me and him, he took me to, in the city at the Ralph Gracie Academy when, it was still in its infancy, really. And that's when I started training there. And that was an amazing experience. I mean, Henzo was a phenomenal instructor and person to be around.
Hey, Will, I got to tell you, you're talking about your Jean-Claude Van Damme reference there, and not too long ago, it shows you, I'm older than Byron, but we were talking actually on a podcast here, and I was telling him about the movie Bloodsport, and Byron's like,
yeah,
what movie? And I know exactly how you feel. I think that was the best movie ever.
Best movie. I'll watch Bloodsport today and get pumped up watching it.
Yeah, me too.
Phenomenal movie, man.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And you know what's funny? One of the friend who got me into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he stopped training. I mean, he never got a blue belt. But right now, at this moment, he is in California, like with Jean-Claude Van Damme, doing like some kind of movie with him right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's awesome. I'm gonna try to see if I can, convince him to let me go out there and meet him or something, because that's just so cool.
Hey, Will, what do you do off the mat? Training or just for fun?
Sure.
Just to get to know you a little bit more.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you realize when you start, I guess, trying to run an academy that jiu-jitsu, you have your jiu-jitsu for fun, for yourself, and then off the mat, it's you got to learn how to run a business. So, for me, there isn't really necessarily off the mats in that sense, because the minute I step off the mats, I'm into the business side of things. So running an academy is really a 7-day-a-week job. I mean, you're putting in 60 hours plus, minimum to run a school and to run it effectively. At least at my school, I always am trying to, keep the standards very high for what, the students are going to experience. So it just takes a lot of planning, a lot of effort, a lot of man hours to do that kind of stuff. And I can go into that kind of stuff with you later, but it takes a lot of time. So pretty much my wife and I, our lives have revolved around the academy, making the academy better. When I do have any kind of leisure time, like I can't really participate in another sport just because, if I'm doing, motorbike riding or something, I break my leg, it's not going to be good because then I can't train with my students. So I pretty much limit the sports that I do to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a big reader, so I read tons and tons of books, and that's just kind of how I relax and just really spending time with my family. I'm one of those guys. It's kind of weird. I'm kind of like an introvert. You would think someone in my position is a real extrovert, being around tons of people, but I really got being around, my family and one-on-one relationships with different people, including some of my students. So it's I get a lot out of just personal relationships and just hanging out with people and just kind of, being a part of different people's lives.
Cool. You said you're a big reader. What do you read? Fiction, nonfiction?
I read everything, fiction and nonfiction. For instance, the nonfiction stuff that I read is, I'm always reading, philosophical stuff, all the time. Fiction stuff, I'm an avid reader of this guy who wrote, you ever hear of the Mitch Rapp book series? Yeah, it's literally like the most amazing thing ever. It's imagine like CIA assassin type stuff like that, like thrillers. I'm really into that kind of stuff. And also, I'm a big Stephen King fan. I've read pretty much everything Stephen King has written. There was a series called The Dark Tower, and I've read all those books. I'm just a huge, huge fan of Stephen King as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Stephen King, a legend right there.
Yeah, man. And I actually met him one time. There was a mini-series that I did called The Shining. It was like a remake of his thing. And, I sat down for lunch, and there was this guy sitting like a couple of seats away from me with this big Harley Davidson T-shirt on. I was like, my God, that's Stephen King right there. He's such a nice guy, too.
I'm a big nonfiction guy. Do you have any books that you could recommend that aren't jiu-jitsu specifically, but maybe can affect the way you think about jiu-jitsu or the way you might train?
It's interesting. Like, I haven't really got into a lot of the books that are about jiu-jitsu or even like stuff that are tangential to it. But a book that I think is really good for kind of getting the correct kind of mindset for sports in general. There was this guy, I think it was called The Art of Tennis. I gotta see if that was, The Inner Game of Tennis. Now, I'm not a tennis player, but the concepts that this person went over in this book really kind of teach you how to get out of your head, and I think that's a really good thing for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because, for instance, a student will, ask me a question, things are happening too quickly for me to really think about what to do, and as soon as I think about what to do, the situation has changed. Well, that's not the way you can approach jiu-jitsu, so you have to know what to focus on. And I kind of felt that the way that this guy his name is Tim Galloway, and he wrote the book, The Inner Game of Tennis, the way he kind of laid stuff out, I think was very, very beneficial.
Cool. I have not read that one, and I just added it to my wish list on Amazon, so I'll be ordering that up pretty soon. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, could you describe to the listeners here your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style or your just overall game?
Absolutely. I've trained with so many different people, and there's been different parts of different people's games that have really impressed me, and kind of it was something that I wanted to emulate. I have a very pressure-oriented game. I'm not a real heavy guy, man. I'm like 178 or something, but I love having a game where you're focusing on pressure, where you're not necessarily trying to run around your opponent or do stuff really quick, but where you're really putting a lot of pressure. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be feeling like you weigh 300 pounds. And so I'm a big pressure passer. I believe in constantly keeping your opponent where he almost wants to tap out from being uncomfortable, whether you're submitting him or not. And I find that kind of style lends itself better so, as you age as well. Maybe when you're not capable of doing like the really athletic, really quick stuff. Because, as we get older, we all know that, we can still get stronger. That's what we say, the old man strength, right? I think I'm coming into my old man strength right now. But my speed, my speed is not what it used to be. And so I kind of think if you're training with jiu-jitsu long term, you should probably find a style that's going to lend itself to you being able to do it when you're in your 50s or 60s. And a slower and more methodical pressure game is usually what works best. I've had a lot of really good teachers, Hey Diogo, Sean Williams, Enzo Gracie, being with Ralph. I was training partners with JT Torres and, Jay Hayes for like a good 2 years when we were we just had ourselves to train with, brown through black belt. And I really, out of everything I'll put it this way, out of everyone that I've rolled with, I've rolled with tons of different people. Say when you're rolling with Marcelo Garcia, you feel like he's just like this ghost. You're going over here and he's over here. And it's crazy how it feels. you're not necessarily feeling like your head's going to pop off or something from the pressure. It's just that you just don't know how he's getting to the places that he's getting to, because he's almost making you feel like everything you're doing is making a mistake. Yeah. So that's one type of style. And then I rolled with Fabio Gurgel, who was Marcelo's teacher, and that was a completely opposite type of thing. When you're rolling with Fabio, and this is when I was a purple belt, you just every position you feel like you have like 500 pounds on top of you, and it's just like you just want it to be over because of how much pressure he's putting on you. So I kind of feel like you roll with different people, and depending upon that, you're going to determine what kind of style you want to have. And for me, like I really was impressed with Fabio Gurgel's style, and say with you roll with Sean Williams, it's kind of like that same thing where like Sean, he could do both pressure pass and also kind of be like where you aren't, that stuff as well. And so that was a real cool thing. So it's just been really fortunate to be able to train with different people with different styles, and then be like, well, what do you want to do? And for me, pressure was where I was at, because there was also this guy that I used to train with when I was a student at Henry, John Danaher. Now everybody knows who John is because of his affiliation with George St. Pierre and all that stuff. But man, that guy was like a Jedi master in jiu-jitsu. I mean, it was just phenomenal. Same kind of thing as, rolling with Marcelo, in the sense of just, this guy being where you aren't. But it's so incredible in the sense that he does it so slowly. Like he trains so slow and so methodically, but yet you can't stop it. I was a blue belt, training in his classes, and it was like he was doing magic or something. So I've just been really, really, lucky to have all these great teachers kind of coming through the ranks.
I want to talk a little bit about some current things with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How about just start off with the rules of Jiu-Jitsu? What do you think that how they are shaping the sport and the martial art?
Sure. Well, it's funny. I just got done doing the referee course. I think it was yesterday in New York City for the IBJJF. And I got to tell you, man, I do not envy these reps that have to go out there, because the rules are very, very technical. And it was really good to go through the course, just because you can kind of see why the rules are set up the way that they're set up. They're set up to prevent students or competitors from getting injured and having a whole year being out because of a blown knee, for instance. And they're also set up very intelligently, in the sense that they're also trying to a certain degree, try to make the rules mirror what you would expect in like a real life circumstance. For example, right? Let's say you're in a mount position. You can stay in the mount position. You get in the mount position the first 20 seconds of the match. You can stay there. Your black belt. You can stay there for the next 9 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever, because if you're in a real street fighting situation, there's no better position to be in than the mount position, right? So like that makes a lot of sense. But if you're stalling in other different positions, you can have a penalty, right? Because you're always trying to progress up the positional hierarchy. So they've done a lot of things in the rules that I think are really good for sport jiu-jitsu, and that's indisputable. Talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense purposes, that's a completely other conversation, So, I mean, I can go into that if you want me to right now. If you guys want me to kind of touch on that.
Sure. Well, let's get to that in a minute. I want to hear about your the course you took. What that was like.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. It was about 4 hours, and it just really took you through everything from the requirements that you need to wear when you're stepping on the mats, to everything from all the positions and the points to the penalties, and really getting into depth as far as like the things that are more controversial these days, like double guard pulls and knee reaping and stuff like that, just to make sure that you know exactly why the referees are making certain calls. And to be honest, I think it's a really good thing to attend, because you're not going to be in the dark if you're on the sidelines and you're seeing one of your competitors, not get points for something, or and it just makes a lot of sense, because in order to coach your competitors, correctly, you should really have a good ground, what the rule set is. And it was done very professionally. The IBJJF does everything very professionally. It was done at the Wil Gracie Academy, and the gentleman who taught the course was very, very, very good about his teaching. Yeah, it was great.
Did you take that just to get a better understanding of the rules?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I took it for two reasons. I wanted to take it to get a better understanding of the rules, but also because, I have never gotten my official IBJJF black belt certificate. Like I have my black belt certificate from Ralph Gracie, but I don't have it from the IBJJF. In order to do that, you have to take a referee course, and you also have to take a CPR course, which I'm doing next week. And I've wanted to do that anyway. So I think it's a really good, responsible thing that the IBJJF does, because if you're a black belt, then you really should know what the rules of competition are, and to be able to referee, even if you don't want to, but it's a good thing to know, just to be able to coach your own students.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the last thing you really want is to have, a bunch of black belt instructors on the sidelines, yelling at a ref, because they think their student should have been awarded a certain, point or whatever, when that's not necessarily warranted. So I think that's a real good reason why they would want a black belt to take the course. And of course, the CPR stuff, man. I mean, I'm sure that stuff you definitely need to know if you're a ref. But by and large, that's stuff I need to know anyway for my academy. If something happens to one of my students, I need to know how to take the proper action. So I think that those 2 points are a really good thing that the IBJJF does.
Yeah, I don't understanding the rules is a big deal, and I don't know how many hours I watched the Worlds this year sitting on my computer at the weekend, but I don't watch a lot of TV, so it was like fun to watch a sporting event, because I'm not usually into that sort of thing, but it was like my entire weekend I sat in front of the computer and watched jiu-jitsu, and it was a little bit intimidating, but I don't remember anybody who argued with a ref winning their match.
Yeah.
They give you I forgot whether they give you take a point away or give you a penalty or something like that, but usually you argue with the ref and it just spirals downward for you. It's
oh yeah.
I didn't see any of that work out good for anybody. Did you say that
never works out good? Even if you're right, it doesn't work out good. I mean, listen. One of my training partners, right? This is going back to 2009. Okay, 2009 Pan Ams. One of my training partners in the black belt division, right? Black belt. So you fight in 10 minutes, right? They stopped the timekeeper. Had his his stopwatch set for 7 minutes, right? And so they called the match at 7 minutes, all right? And my training partner was down like an advantage or 1 point or something like that, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like that's it. So like there is. They didn't restart the match. They didn't say, okay, well, let's do it for the next 3 minutes. Now I'm sure that they probably put some safeguards into place since then. But I mean, even if you do argue with the ref and you're completely in the right, it's still not going to wind up right for you anyway. So, it's a good point.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, and I mean, boils down to human error. I mean,
right.
It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Did you say that they require you to get CPR certified as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to have your current CPR certification in order to get your black belt certificate, and I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think like if you're a black belt instructor and you're teaching at the class, something happens, like you really should know what to do. Call an ambulance, but if some guy can't breathe, you need to perform CPR, you should be able to do that. I think that's a really good thing, but I'm sure that the reason why they have it is not necessarily for the academy, but if something happens during a competition to a certain degree. Yeah. But I think that's a very responsible thing.
Yeah, definitely the academy or a competition. Like you said, it's just great to know. It's going to take the first responders a couple minutes to get there. If you can perform basic CPR, that person's going to have a lot better chance to either heal quicker or, if it's really bad, to stay alive there too. So it's definitely good to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and from a experience point of view, I'm a firefighter, and when we walk in the door and somebody is doing CPR when we get there, I know right off the bat that person has a better chance than if they were just laying there. Like the confidence shoots up. It's like, hey, this is a real good chance of saving somebody here, versus when they're just laying there and somebody's freaking out. Like it's worth your time to take how long is the course? It's an afternoon. It's only
going to be it's a 4-hour course.
Yeah.
Where you're going through the motions on a live dummy with an instructor.
Yeah.
As opposed to one of these things that you do online. You have to take a legitimate course.
Yeah, and I'd urge anybody to do that because it does make a difference, and you could be around anybody who could need you to do that, and it's not really that complicated.
Right.
Right. They'll make it a little more complicated than it is, but any CPR in progress is better than none. I would say, from my experience anyway. So that's cool. I didn't realize they required that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Let's move on. You mentioned a little bit about jiu-jitsu for self-defense.
Sure.
What are your basic feelings on that?
Here's my take on everything, right? So going back to why I wanted to get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'd watch like the UFC, you'd watch, Pride fighting and, see, Pride, when it's not like the UFC Pride. Someone could be down on the ground and you could soccer kick their head and stomp on them. It was a completely different scenario, right? So, watching that kind of stuff and seeing the old school jiu-jitsu, right? That, jiu-jitsu was conceived for real world self-defense. It was the purpose of it was to be able to win a fight, against an attacker, right? With strikes, right? So, I remember being, a student, maybe like a blue belt, and you'd watch some of these, old Vale Tudo videos from Brazil that the instructor would show you. These guys, it was like literally no rules whatsoever. And they'd be using their jiu-jitsu with strikes. And so the type of jiu-jitsu that you needed to have to fight real fights, right? Now, I'm not even talking about like fights like on a padded surface like you see in the UFC, but like real fights was a completely different type of jiu-jitsu than you see now in sports jiu-jitsu, right? So, if you have someone like Ralph Gracie saying that 80% of everything that he does in the Ghee is completely useless for MMA, right? And bear in mind that MMA is still two guys in a cage, in a controlled setting, on a padded surface. How much of it is still useful when you put it on a concrete surface with maybe a second attacker, right? So,
yeah,
what I kind of feel is happening, right, is like if you go to any current, not any, but like most jiu-jitsu schools, right? Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the best thing for self-defense. It's been proven, in the MMA world. They point to the Gracie's in action videos and that kind of stuff. Great, but what style of jiu-jitsu are you teaching when you're talking about that kind of stuff? Are you teaching the style of jiu-jitsu that is really meant for real-world self-defense, or are you teaching the style of jiu-jitsu that is good for fighting one other person in a gi without strikes and where you don't even have to do a takedown, right? Because for me, listen, I'm not like a just guy that's gotten tons of fights, but I've had my share of fights, growing up, and it's not like it is on the mat. You're on the concrete. You want to shoot a double leg, you're going to bust your kneecap, all right? You want to guard pull, that's going to really, really hurt. You want a berimbolo, you're going to be in pain just from the movement on the concrete.
I would love to see the berimbolo in a street fight.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. But here's the thing, guys. What you drill is what you're going to do in a real-life situation. Because if you spend all your training time drilling, let me sit to guard, let me berimbolo, let me grab, let me go underneath, let me sweep. When your adrenaline hits in a real fight, guess what you're going to do? You're going to do that same thing. It's not like you're going to start doing, all right, let me strike, and let me get the clinch, let me take down, let me have a pressure game, That's not what you're going to do. You're going to do what you drill in the academy, what you spar in the academy. And so I just feel it's very important for people or students in their training to have a clear picture of what exactly they're preparing themselves for, right? And to have that in their consciousness and think about that when they kind of look inside and say, am I really confident in my fighting skill, right? So, if I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I've never taken a striking class in my life, and I don't know how to do a takedown, and all I do is I pull guard, and all I do is I train Ghee, and I use berimbolos, upside down guard, 50-50 to a certain extent, and and that's all I do, how much is that really going to prepare me for the guy that outweighs me by 50 pounds that, you know, he's done some striking and he was a college wrestler? I'd say slim to none, really, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, that's just the reality. And so if you're deriving your sense of self-confidence by the fact that you're a brown belt and in your own gym you can manhandle all these other people that are also fighting in a gi and are only doing sport jiu-jitsu moves, I don't really think that should give you the confidence for real self-defense.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that being said, however, I'm not an advocate of getting rid of the gi. I'm not an advocate of, hey, let's just train striking, wrestling, and no gi. I mean, unless you're constantly in danger of, you know, I don't know, walking down the street and having some guy in a Speedo attack you.
I'm running the other way.
I mean,
one of my biggest
maybe
fears.
Maybe you live in Miami or something, and that's different. But most of us are wearing some type of clothing, you know, a shirt, pants, that kind of stuff. And so if all you ever do is you train no gi, and you don't know, man, this guy's got my pants, you know, and no one ever grabs my pants in training. You know, you got to know how to move with clothing on. And so I do feel that gi training is very beneficial as long as your gi game is a no gi game, in a sense. Train with the gi by all means, but don't rely on the gi and make that your offensive or defensive strategy, all right? Because that's not really realistic for MMA or even real-world self-defense. So my students, I want them to train in the gi, right? I definitely want them to train in the gi through, you know, purple belt or even through black belt. But the thing is, I would prefer that their games don't get so sporty unless that's what they want. You know, like if someone comes in and listen, I just want to become a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion and I want to train sports Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm like, well, do you want to do it for self-defense? They're like, no, I don't care about self-defense. I just want to train sports Jiu-Jitsu. Then by all means do that. But I think that 90% of the people come into a gym for one of two reasons or both. Either to get in shape or to learn real self-defense or a combination of both of those. And so what can happen is they can come into a gym and they don't know, you know, if this move is really good for self-defense or not. They're just kind of relying on the black belt instructor. And then they start using the gi. And then they start getting into this real sporty jiu-jitsu mode. And they're thinking, man, I'm tapping these people out in class. I'm getting good at self-defense because that's what I signed up for. I signed up for self-defense. And everybody knows Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is good for self-defense. And then they get into a real-life altercation where, man, this person is punching me in my face, and he doesn't have a gi that I can use to choke. You know, it's going to be a whole other, it's going to be a rude awakening. I mean, I remember being a blue belt and seeing this brown belt coming to this academy with his face all busted up, and me asking someone, what happened to this guy? Man, here's a brown belt. He got his butt kicked. How does that happen? So he didn't know how to get out of the headlock. He didn't know how to get out of the headlock.
That's bad.
You know, and I'm like, wow, how much would that suck to get to such a high level of jiu-jitsu and to get your butt kicked because you don't know how to get out of and deal with one of those basic things you should be learning. But on the other end of the spectrum, I don't think you should just come in and train, you know, the Gracie basic self-defense stuff. Like, listen, you can't become an elite level wrestler if you're worried about someone punching you in your nose. You just can't, right? Because you got to modify things so that you can learn body movement and timing. You can't become a really good jiu-jitsu player if from day one you got to worry about someone like punching you in the groin or like, you know, fish hooking you or clawing your face. You just can't do that. But that being said, I feel like if you're really interested in self-defense, the jiu-jitsu style that you should be training should be as close as possible to self-defense, but still allow you to train in such a way that you can become an elite level grappler. And then what you do is you add classes where you're going to take that base of, you know, of your jiu-jitsu grappling, and then let's add some strikes, right? Let's see what happens if you're getting punched in the face. Is your upside down guard really going to be effective if now I can try to kick you? So just to bring a little bit of reality back into it, because I'm not advocating like this, you know, I don't know, Krav Maga, let's just, from day one, let me, put me on the belly and elbow you in your face or something like that. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying let's be clear about what we're training for and make sure that the type of training that we're doing is going to lend itself to us having that kind of success in a real-life situation, and be honest with our marketing and our students as to what am I really teaching them, and is that really going to help them to achieve the goal that they came in here for, right? So that's my main, idea about jiu-jitsu and self-defense these days. You look at a place like, just pick any MMA gym, right? Like, these guys are training what I think is I think MMA in its entirety, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and kickboxing, that is the best style to lend itself to real-world self-defense. Yeah. However, you have to modify your wrestling. You cannot shoot in like a wrestler, right? That would be my main thing with people that train MMA. You can't go shoot in, double legs on the ground. It's got to be Greco. You got to have, your underhooks and overhooks and that type of stuff. So, like I said, you just got to really examine the context.
Yeah, I'm always conflicted about any self-defense system or martial arts. And with jiu-jitsu, it does have problems as well. I mean, jiu-jitsu is great if it's like I picture like the old classic, like, let's have a duel. Like the two guys in like the old '60s are going to have a gentlemanly duel, and one will be dead in 5 minutes. But it's like, let's go out in the parking lot and let's me and you fight. And then I'm not worried about his friend. I'm not worried about a weapon. I'm not worried about any of these other 20 other elements that could happen to me that are really hard to train for. And so even if you have the mount on somebody and you're doing well, I mean, watch a YouTube fight. A guy gets mount, half the time the other guy's buddy will either come in and start fighting the guy winning, or just drag him off the mount and make him start up again and fight some more. I mean, there's so many hard to train for factors in a street fight. I mean, to me, the main goal is to live and to get away from the whole situation. So there's really not a lot of winning in a street fight from my point of view. But even with MMA, those guys, they're not training to deal with any kind of weapon or even weapon awareness. That changes dramatic. I mean, I think a weapon is more dramatic than taking a jiu-jitsu guy and striking at him than it would be to take an MMA guy and introduce a weapon. The weapon is a lot bigger deal than striking is to the jiu-jitsu guy. Like, and there are all these different levels of being prepared for a really bad situation. So it's
by the way, that's spot on. Everything that you just said, I completely agree with. I mean, you said something really, really smart. There is no winning in a street fight. There is no winning. I get into a street fight or something, even if the other guy's wrong, I knock him out or I choke him unconscious or something, I'm probably looking at a year in jail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just, and then looking to get sued. There is no winning whatsoever. And that's why I really feel like the only when you're talking about self-defense is really just running and getting the heck out of there. I mean, that's self-defense. Because like you said, you don't know who has a weapon. The guy that mounted on top of you while you're trying to, do a head and arm triangle could pull out a knife out of his other pocket and stab you in your ribs, or his buddy comes up behind you, like you said. There's so many different variables, right? So, for me, this is not like the 50s, right? It's always okay. I'm going to meet you in the alley, and it's just going to be you and me, and we're going to have a fair fight, and everybody's going to watch. That's just not our world these days. Like you said, you can just look on YouTube and see tons of videos and see. Okay, go look on YouTube. Let's look on what's that website? World Star Hip Hop.
World Star.
Or that kind of stuff. And it's like how many of those videos do you see? Like a crowd of people and just two guys fighting fairly. It never happens. Never. Right? So it's always multiple people attacking. So then you brought up a really good point. What does that mean for real world self-defense? So like that's why like my academy and upcoming, as we're progressing toward this, we're going to be, teaching classes on conflict avoidance. How do you not bring on a conflict in the way that you're acting? How do you keep your eyes open for other things? How do you extricate yourself from a situation?
Yeah.
Because that is very important to self-defense. Listen, I have students that want to learn how to knife fight. Like, I mean, it's fine. Learn how to knife fight, man. But, like, if I see a knife, I am running. I'm a fast runner, man. Yeah. I was a track and field when I was younger. That is my number one self-defense weapon. I can run faster than anyone else. Right? So, listen, and it's like, some people, they try to act so macho. Oh, I'm going to be this. I'm never going to back down from a fight. Dude, you're stupid. I mean, if you think that, if your ego is that big, But you got a wife, you got a kid, you know, you're gonna literally put yourself in harm's way, maybe leave your kid an orphan because you got such a big ego that you can't extricate yourself from a situation. Like, come on, man, like, grow up.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I have to say. Like, that's not bravado. That's not bravado. That's just stupidity. You know, that's having an ego. Me, listen, the bigger man, the one who's like, you know what, I could kick this person's butt in 2 seconds. But you know what? I don't need to do that right now. I'm going to be the bigger person, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to walk away because you know what? I feel like my character is better than that. And you know what? Newsflash, no one becomes not an asshole because you kick their ass.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like you kick someone's ass. Like, thank you so much. I'm not going to be an asshole for the rest of my life. Then you're still going to be an asshole. Just let him be an asshole, and you walk away to go home to your wife and kid, and everybody can be who they want to be. You know,
Yeah, no, I don't know that technique to change from the asshole to the non-asshole.
And I can tell you, you know, with my own training, the biggest thing that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has done for me is give me confidence. It has given me the confidence to know to walk away from that, where I think before I had the skills that I do, I would be more apt to get in the fight because I thought, you know, as Will was saying, I'm a big tough guy and I need to prove something. And that's what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has done for me. It's given me the confidence that I don't need to do that. That I, as Will said, I'm the bigger man for walking away to go home to my wife and kids. And that's what it's about. It's about living another day for your wife, your kids, to training partners and friends and family.
Absolutely. Right on.
Yeah. A couple of things that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if somebody wants to learn about self-defense for that, I really stress on escapes. Like I do feel that if I'm in a street altercation and I'm in a bad spot, you know, someone's on top of me in side controller mount, or, you know, I feel like I'm going to be able to get out. Like you don't want to get stuck anywhere for any amount of time. That's one of my high priorities when I'm working on any sort of self-defense thing, is just to get somebody off of you, so you can get out of there. And like Gary was saying, the no ego thing. Like, if you train jiu-jitsu for a few years and your ego is still that fragile to where you have to keep proving yourself,
you're in trouble.
Yeah. And
completely.
You mentioned
completely.
You know, there is a lot of ways to lose a fight, even if you do win. You know, you mentioned, you know, getting in legal trouble and getting thrown in jail, and how, you know, let's say I get in a fight and I go tell my instructor, yeah, I got in a fight. You know, I didn't get injured or whatever, you know. And then a month later, yeah, I got another fight. Okay, maybe it's you.
We have a problem,
you know,
here.
Yeah, like, how many fights do you want your students to actually go out and get? You don't want to be like the Cobra Kai school or you know, like the old Karate Kid style where they go out and pick fights all the time. So, I mean, you do run a danger of getting in trouble from your own, you know, instructor, you know. Hey,
it's going to hurt your instructor's school. You don't want to be the school around town known as, hey, these guys go out down every Friday and Saturday night downtown. They're getting in fights and hurting people.
No way, man. It's just so horrible when you hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If I saw that stuff in one of my students, I would just probably let them go.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's not worth it.
The reason being, man, they're gonna hurt themselves. And I'm kind of like enabling them to do that. And on top of that, they're going to make the school known as being a bunch of bullies. I don't like that. Listen, I have a brown belt student. This kid is so amazing. His name is Tim Park. This kid is like, he's like a phenom in jiu-jitsu. Like, literally as like a blue belt. He is a few years back. He entered the advanced division of a Grappler's Quest, and he fought like the guy who'd won like the brown belt world championships like the previous year. And the score was like 0-0, or 0-0 and 1 advantage with the other kid. You know, I mean, this is a blue belt fighting like the world brown belt, one of the brown belt world champions, right? And this kid could literally demolish anybody that he wants to. And there was a time when he was telling me that he was at some random place eating, probably, I don't know, McDonald's or something like that. And he's Korean, and there were some other guys that were throwing like racist insults at him and some of his friends, even throwing like French fries over there. And instead of going over and manhandling these people, he's like, "Come on, guys, let's just leave." You know, like, listen, this kid's a step above what I would be able to do. But I mean, that kind of lack of ego, that kind of understanding of who he really is as a human being is very impressive. That's the kind of stuff that impresses me.
Yeah, there's a role model. That's somebody I want my kids to look up to, my kids to know and act like Kim Park there. That's awesome.
Exactly.
So he had a lot of success early on. What would be like some good goals for a student for the first year of jiu-jitsu?
Sure.
He competed at a high level, very early on, with a couple of years on. But like first year is kind of rough in learning jiu-jitsu. What would be a good couple things to say?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. Like, here's what happens with white belts when they come in. They're super, super motivated, and I love that motivation, man. I love, that they come in. They probably just saw the UFC and they want to do that. However, the thing is, the gym is not the UFC, so you don't want to treat it like it is. Like, white belts are super rough, and they want to get those submissions. And listen, man, if they have your arm, some student's arm, they'll probably try to break it, because they're viewing everything as like this competition, right? And white belts are really spazzy, and they use too much effort, and it's because they don't know the correct technique, right? So my advice to white belts would be, first of all, really focus on your defense. Learn the basics of your defense, right? So that you know how to get out of arm bars, how to get out of triangles, without trying to use too much strength, or spaz out of something. Really learn how to focus on getting out of the mount, getting out of your side control, how to recover your guard. Lay that foundation, right? Too often white belts come in and they want to know the newest, fanciest technique, right? Something that looks really, really cool, right? But the reality is, if you get into the mount position, but you don't even know how to solidify that position, there's no sense in learning, the Barada Plata or something like that. There's no sense in learning that kind of stuff. You got to learn how to, number one, escape, and number one, how to maintain position. That is the key thing that a white belt should be learning. Positional stability, how to get out and how to stay, right? That's the most important thing. Not, chaining together submissions yet, right? Additionally, they really need to learn persistence, because what happens is they come in, they're all hyped up, they want to come train 4 or 5 days a week, and then they're like, man, I can't keep this up. And then, maybe they're getting injured or they're experiencing burnout, right? People have to realize that the jiu-jitsu lifestyle is not a sprint. It's never a sprint, right? Maybe you get those guys who are from a very young age, like, this is what I want to do for a living. I've never thought of doing anything else than this. And they're able to do their, 2-3 day training sessions, and they have people that are going to back them financially and that kind of stuff. But if you're doing this as a hobby, maybe you want to compete. Yeah, fine. Maybe you want to learn self-defense, but you're really doing it as a hobby because you have some other job. Then you know what? You need to learn persistence. You need to learn, I'm going to come and I'm going to train my 2, hopefully 3 days a week, because 3 days is the best training schedule for the everyday person. And to know what to do when I experience burnout. I'm not going to just stop training for 2 months and lose all of my timing, lose all the things that I've done to my body to build it up so that it can be able to take this type of training, and then think that I'm going to be able to come back. No, you're not going to want to come back, because you're going to be out of shape. Your body's going to have to go through all that soreness again, and you're going to feel like you suck, right? So you're not going to want to come back. So you got to learn, well, how do I scale things back? And one of the best things that I have my students do when they want to scale things back is they say, listen, don't come train 4 days a week. Come train 2 days a week. If that's too much for you, come train 1 day a week if you want to. But drill and drill and drill. Drilling is the most important thing as a white belt. I remember reading a story a while back about Larry Bird. For those of you who are so young that you don't know who Larry Bird is.
Bird was my man.
On you. Larry Bird was one of the best basketball players ever. And he was filming a commercial, I think it was for Burger King or something, where he had to, shoot basketballs at a hoop and make it so that, he missed. Not completely missed, but it kind of, hit the rim and went out. And he had to do it, over and over and over and over again because, he was having a problem getting it to actually miss just right. It just kept going in the hoop, right? And so a lot of times, and I've experienced this as an instructor going around when you're coaching students, when sometimes students, they stop drilling a move when they feel that they've got it, right? Oh, I got it. I understand it. I got it. No, you don't have it. You don't have it, right? You got the move when you can't do it wrong, even if you tried. You can't help but do it the correct way, right? That's when you got it, because that's the time when you're like, on a street and someone's attacking you and you're fighting for your life. You don't have time to think, am I putting my foot in the right place here? You don't have time to think about anything. Same when you're competing. You don't have time to think about anything. So you got to drill stuff until you can't do it wrong. That's my other thing that I'd like to say about that. So just come and drill, because that's so important. And then I do this thing called S training, which was taught to me by Sean Williams, who, in my estimation, is probably one of the best. Him and John Danaher, and these guys are probably one of the best group of instructors in the United States in their ability to really communicate techniques and make students better. But S training is like this. And if anybody who wants to know, Sean Williams put out a really good video on YouTube about it. Just type in his name, Sean Williams, and S training. Where it really goes into, like, let's say we're doing a game of twos. That would mean what's going to happen is we're going to flow roll, and I'm going to go for 2 submissions, and you're going to go for 2 escapes. And then you're going to go for 2 submissions, and I'm going to go for 2 escapes. And you can make it even more complex, and I can go into this another time. But the idea is it's you're assisting your partner in your training. There's no resistance. You're trying to see how many transitions you can go through. And so it's not a competition. It's more like a dance, so to speak, where you're cooperating with your partner. And so let me pose this question to you guys, right? Let's say you have a limited amount of energy, right, and time. But not for time, limited amount of energy. Is it better to do S training, where you could literally train for an hour straight without even breaking a sweat or breathing heavy, but you've gone through hundreds of transitions and have been able to see little details that you never noticed before, or go balls to the wall for 10 minutes and be that good? What would you rather do?
I can tell you, I never called it S training, but I'm really big into that. And I think that has helped my game so much. Like you said, I get that muscle memory of going after the moves, escaping right away. Me and my partner are just rolling through it. I can roll for a long time. I'm getting a ton of drilling in offensively, defensively, escaping. And so I'm definitely going to say I'm in love with that S training. It's really helped my game a lot.
Yep, I'm in the same category. We had on here a while back a guy named Daniel Coyle, who was author of the New York Times bestselling book, The Talent Code, and he was explaining what drilling actually does. And he says muscle memory is what people know it as, but really it's in your brain. It's not actually your muscles, but the little neurons between your brain, or those 2 little neurons that you have in your brain, and that little thing that connects them, that actually gets thicker. It's like the wiring of your brain gets faster and higher speed, like internet, to so everything is a lot smoother for you, and it just feels like Larry Bird shooting his basketball. Like, he couldn't do it wrong because he's wired to do it correctly every time. So, I mean, literally, as you drill and as you make little mistakes and change them and get better, your brain is actually slightly changing to where your body is going to move and perform better for you. So, yeah, I'm with you all the way. That's training.
The other thing I was going to tell you is, for white belts, tap out.
Yes.
You got to tap out, man. You got to tap out. I see these guys, like, straight arm bar, the arm's already straight, and they're, like, holding on. And I literally go over and I stop it, and they go, but it didn't hurt yet. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. Your arm's about to break. And the flip side of that, don't try to crank other people's arms. At my academy, we have a policy. I want my students to go for the control, not the crank. So that's why it's fun. Like, I'll train with some of my black belt students, my brown belt students. I'll have them in an arm bar, and it's like 3 inches, away from being straightened out. And they're trying to escape, trying to turn their finger, trying to turn the thumb down, trying to do stuff. I'm letting them try to do that kind of stuff, and not going for the actual pressure crank, because that would make me a complete jerk, number one. And number two, it allows me to work on my control.
Yeah.
If the only way you can get a submission is to really go for it, balls to the wall, and like as if it's something that's not going to be there a second from now. You got to learn more how to control the submission better. And so go for the control, not for the crank. Don't crank someone's arm and then go home and celebrate and feel good about yourself, as if you just hit something awesome, And the last thing would be watch a lot of competition footage and try to emulate what you see. Watch a jiu-jitsu match before you go train, and just keep that in your in your subconscious, and then go train. I find that that's very beneficial.
Cool. Those are a lot of good tips. I do like the tap out. It's funny and it's true because it depends on the mindset of the student, but sometimes they just refuse to tap out, and then it ends up hitting them pretty hard when it actually matters.
Yeah,
so.
And I really like what you said there too. You got the move when you can't do it wrong. That really, that's I've never heard that before, but that's really true right there. And I think that's definitely going to, help my game right there too. Thinking about that and just make sure I drill. And okay, so we just got your goals you were talking about there, Will, for students during the first year. What are your own goals right now?
My goals, I just turned 35, so, my goals are really, I want to have a few kids, be a great husband, father, a good neighbor to people. I really want to produce quality students. Not just in the jiu-jitsu, but as far as good representatives of martial artists. I kind of feel like that's important. I'm not trying to raise a bunch of, tough bullies, so to speak. And I kind of feel like that, I want to live a meaningful life. I want to live a life pleasing to God. I want to do stuff that's, beneficial to other people, kind of looking out for other people's interests. For me, it's not necessarily like a certain benchmark or a certain place I want to be. It's not like I have these goals hey, I want to have a $1 million house. I want to have a yacht. I want to, I at this point in my life, I've done a lot of stuff. I've started in films. I've traveled all over the world. I've done tons and tons of different stuff. So it's not like there are these benchmarks that I really feel like are out there that I want to hit in that sense. My goals are necessarily day-to-day goals of who I want to be, right? So I want to be a loving husband. I want to be a caring coach. I want to, do good things for other people. I don't really have any kind of benchmark goals as far as, certain materialistic things that I want in my life or whatever. I just, more goals as far as legacy. I want to have been known as, a person that, put other people's interests before his own or that, was a really kind person or that really thought about others, before himself and those types of things. Those are the kind of goals that I necessarily have. Jiu-jitsu, I'm already a black belt. I've had a really great, I've been trained with a lot of great people. I was never really much of into competition as much just because I really got into it for self-defense. I won the Pan Ams, in the adult division as a brown belt in no Ghee. And, at that point I was like, hey, if I want to really continue, I will. But it wasn't something that really kind of lit a fire underneath me that I was like, man, I just want to be this competitor. Jiu-jitsu was always something that was just more fun for me to do. And so I really feel that my strength is also in teaching. I can really communicate jiu-jitsu to people in a very clear, concise manner that they're able to automatically apply. And so my goals are really in creating really good students in whatever capacity that they want to, do the sport, I feel. And so that's kind of the idea of the goals that I have for my life.
They sound like you've got your compass heading in the right direction. You've got very worthy and great goals for on and off the mat. For your students, and then for your personal life, you've got sounds like you're headed in the right direction for yourself. So that's good to hear, man. Can you think of any concepts that you've learned in jiu-jitsu or about jiu-jitsu that have helped you a lot? Maybe like the slower drilling, the S training or something like that. Maybe it's something else, or if that's already the.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things when you're training jiu-jitsu, you really don't want to create space. Space is never a good thing. right? Because, like, say you're on top, you're passing space, you want to do like a wet towel on someone, right? Suffocating, where you're like constricting, where you're not creating space for their body to move into and to launch a defense, right? So space is generally a bad thing when you're doing jiu-jitsu. The other thing is learning how to really pace yourself. Pace yourself in the sense of in how hard that you're training at each moment. I rarely train over 70% of my, say, cardio or strength capacity in any given moment, because jiu-jitsu is not a one-for-one game in a sense. It's not like I can go and enforce my armbar on you, right? It doesn't work like that. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're in a mount position. And let's say you got the guy's head with your left arm, you're pressuring your shoulder into his face, and with your right arm, you've swum underneath his arm, you're kind of going elbow to elbow, and you're doing that kind of crowbar motion against the floor to walk his arm up to the head so that you can get your head over to the right side to do a head and arm triangle choke.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, you can start the move that way, but you can't force it, right? You have to have your backup move ready and your third backup move. Let's take it from another side. Let's say that you're in a mount position and you want to armbar your partner's right arm, his literal right arm, right? Not your perspective, his right arm. And the key to an armbar, especially if it's no gi, is making sure that you get your partner's elbow to your belly button or past your midline, so that you can tilt your hips and you can effectively create a block with your belly and your hips to prevent him bringing that elbow back down to the ground. And one of the best ways to do that is if for whatever strategy you want to use for getting his elbow to your midsection, is to take your left elbow and bring it over to the left side of his face, and so that there's a block, he can't move, and take your right arm and go underneath his arm and grab his armpit. Now you've effectively created a block, right? Now, once you do that, you can start pressuring forward, driving your head to the mat to kind of create more pressure on his arm and slide up to the armbar. But if your partner is really insistent on going crazy and pulling his elbow out of it, you cannot force that armbar. You need to get ready to do your second move, which is when he pulls that right arm down to the ground, simultaneously to wipe his left arm up to do the head and arm triangle, right? And then there's move 3 and move 4. Never approach jiu-jitsu as if you're trying to go for move 1, all right? And if you don't have a move 2 and a move 3 for any given series, you need to learn that. You need to drill that such that no moves are drilled in isolation. Yeah, sure. Learn the armbar, drill it so you can't do it wrong. But then you can't stop there and go on to something else. You need to drill move 2 in the series and move 3 in the series for what you're going to do in every step when he defends. Only then are you going to really be able to launch a really great offense. I'm actually going to be creating this tutorial video series for a blog called Pro MMA Now on exactly what to do in the mount.
Okay.
So if you guys are interested, you kind of look at this later on. Because I'm not doing a great job verbally of explaining it, but it'll kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. You always have to have your threes, your 3 moves from every position, your attacks, your defenses. Never train stuff in isolation, which is also why, let's say you're trying to get out of an armbar, and let's say you're doing the hitchhiker escape. You're never just drilling the hitchhiker escape. You're also drilling the omoplata escape, where you're jumping over to side control. Because as soon as you do your hitchhiker escape, your opponent's going to put on the omoplata. So you can never just drill things in isolation. You need to drill them in series. That's the second thing. So no space, drilling things in threes, and pacing yourself, I think, are really, really effective thing to do. As far as if you're a white belt, you're learning this stuff, this is the stuff you got to do.
I like how they all 3 of those tips. The no space, you mentioned you're a pressure guy, and so that's right on there with that, Now, if I'm on the bottom, just for the basic jiu-jitsu guys, do I want space? Or if I'm in a bad spot, is space my friend?
It really depends. It's all contextual.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, like if someone is flattening me out with a low mount, space is not necessarily good there. I gotta bump my hips up, turn on my side a little bit, create my frame to do my elbow and knee escape. But like, let's say I'm in, I've got into a, deep half guard or something, and my opponent's he's trying to create space then. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's going to be very contextual. It's more like a general rule. you got to create space when you need it, but then when you don't need space, you can't have space. And so you got to be very clear on the context for everything. There.
Like you say, like the wet blanket. That's where your pressure is going to be. And then I like the pace yourself, and then the drill in sets like of threes, like and that goes back to what you're saying about the S training. Like link stuff together and pace yourself and really, I mean that's a good way to learn jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, let's go on to a little bit of coaching stuff here. I know you got students, and you talked about them competing. And one of the big questions we get from beginner students emailing into our website here is advice for their first tournament. People are always a little nervous going in their first tournament. So what advice could you give someone for their first tournament?
Sure, absolutely. Number one, be prepared. A lot of times, fear or nervousness to a certain extent is created due to a lack of preparation. We don't know if we are up for the task at hand. Maybe you haven't come to the gym as much as you should, and you shouldn't be competing, or you haven't sufficient enough hard rolling to make sure that your cardio is way above par. So you got to make sure that you've done the preparation that's going to lend itself to as calm a disposition as possible. So as long as you've put in your work on the mat and you're just dealing with normal competition jitters and stuff like that, there's a program that I usually recommend to my students. I just let them borrow my own. It's called Gold Medal Mental Workout. You can get it off Amazon, and it was created by this guy. Let me see if I can remember his name. He was a judo player. It's called the Gold Medal Mental Workout for Combat Sports, a step-by-step program of mental exercises. It's by Dariusz Nowacki. It was made in 1997, and it was also used by several high-level Olympic athletes to really work on their mental game, so that you're not nervous, you're excited, right? And it really tells you how to really control a lot of the feelings that you're going to have when you compete. And so, you're either going to become a great competitor as far as your mental disposition and your psychology by competing all the time, or you're going to do it by, practicing, mentally. For me, I only have probably a few competition videos out there, but I mean, I look like I'm really kind of calm and relaxed while I'm competing, and I am. I don't really have a problem with, the nervousness and the jitters if I've done my preparation and I've worked on my mental state. So those two things are hand in hand. Psychology is a very big part of competition, right? So you got to make sure you're preparing yourself physically and you're preparing yourself mentally. Now, if you've done those things, you really just got to understand this is your white belt, and you're going in your first tournament.
Yeah. And
that this is a learning experience, right? This is not the finals of the World Championship of black belt, So
yeah,
this is about you. It's not about your instructor and pleasing your instructor, all right? Because unless you got a real messed up instructor, you're not gonna have an instructor being upset with you for losing a competition. I personally have never met an instructor of mine who was ever upset with me losing a competition. So that should never be in your consciousness at all. Listen, the fact is, unless you're the best black belt alive today, all right, there's always going to be someone better than you, right? And the fact that you're a white belt, that automatically tells you that you don't know anything, right, and that there's a lot to learn. And so is it the same thing when you're training? Don't be upset when you get tapped out. Be happy when you get tapped out, because now you know not to move your body. Now you know something that you shouldn't be doing. So go home, think about it, take some notes, and drill it in your head to do something differently. So like when you're losing a competition or you get tapped out, that to me that's called failing forward. That's not failing backwards. Now it's like, what did they say about, I think it was Thomas Edison, right? Right, I've discovered another way to not invent the light bulb, something like that, right? So, you don't just wake up one day and you're a black belt. It's like touching a stove. You're going to put your hand on that stove and it's going to burn, and you're going to be like, man, I don't want to do that again. You got to keep touching stoves. You got to keep doing things that are going to teach you what not to do, because that's the only way to get better. You can't sit there try to draw a diagram and intellectually get the right thing to do at all times. A lot of this is just muscle memory. Your body knows, ooh, I don't want to move like that again. So be happy when you get tapped out. Be happy when you lose your competitions, right? Because that it's only going to lend itself to you really learning how to do things the right way, right? So don't be too hard on yourself. Relax, have a fun time, and realize that you're doing this for fun. Nobody's going to look down on you for losing a competition. Nobody. And now you shouldn't look down on yourself either.
Man, I really love that keep touching stoves, your quote there. That's awesome because, like you said, that's what you got to do. We've got to make mistakes, and we're going to learn from them. We're going to, as you said, failing forward. So I really like that. Keep touching stoves.
And eventually, if you touch enough stoves, by the time you're a black belt, you'll learn to turn off the stove.
Yeah.
Or if it's red hot, to not touch it.
We won't have a black belt. Our hand will be black.
We've talked a little bit about you in the past, about your earlier jiu-jitsu stuff, but what were you like as a blue belt?
I was horrible as a blue belt. I mean, not horrible to say. I mean, listen, I was a blue belt, but I mean, I was probably like an instructor's nightmare as a blue belt. I would go way too hard. I did not like to get tapped out. I did not want to tap out. Was just one of those guys that was just too rough. And it wasn't until I was like mid-level purple belt that I started really learning, man, this stuff is not really conducive to learning jiu-jitsu, right? So I'll give you an example, right? One of my friends is a guy that we kind of come up the ranks to a certain degree together when I was living in Los Angeles. A guy named Sean Patrick Flannery, who a lot of you guys know from Boondock Saints.
Yeah, definitely.
And that kind of stuff. And I remember one time we were training in his garage, and I was a blue belt, and he was either a blue or I think he was a purple belt at the time. And he put me in a toe hold, right? And he starts to apply pressure and stops, and he looks at me like, "You gonna tap out?" And I go, "I'm like, no, I don't feel anything. I'll just escape and just keep going." I was an idiot because literally a second later, my foot breaks. I mean, and you just hear the crack, and he goes, "Oh my god," like that kind of stuff. And that pretty much defines me as a blue belt. Like being so stupid that I'm not going to tap out to almost a fully extended toe hold where I can't even turn. Right? Like that's me as a blue belt. So I had a lot of learning to do, in order to get to my current philosophies. And so my goal, right, is for students not to have a broken foot, to pop their MCL, to screw up their LCL, to, get a herniated disc in their back, the list goes on and on. Like, why go through all that stuff? Because when you calculate all that time spent off that from injuries, you realize, you know what? I would have been so much farther along if I just put my ego away and, I wasn't submission hunting on other people, and I would also tap out myself. So that being said, I was a really tough blue belt, but I was a stupid blue belt.
Hey, Will, what tips would you have for a jiu-jitsu practitioner to develop a game plan?
Yeah, it's really important that you do go forth with a game plan. For one of the most complex martial arts that there is, you should not approach it in some kind of random, haphazard fashion. You need to literally, whether you want to use a mind map or you want to just use a piece of notepaper or whatever, but you need to determine what your first three moves are going to be for every position that you find yourself in every situation, right? And you need to keep learning and drilling until you can claim those three moves as your own. So you need your three moves from half guard top, half guard bottom. You need your three moves from half guard top when your opponent has an underhook, right? You need your three moves from back step half guard. So in other words, you just need to make sure that in every conceivable position in jiu-jitsu, you're taking stock of where you are at any given time in your own education. And try to fill in those questions. Like, I don't know what type, what policies are in different academies and that kind of stuff. In some of the academies that, where I've been in the past, you couldn't really go up to the instructor and kind of pick his brain and ask, him for tons of advice and play tons of questions, with him because, obviously that's your own personal time and it's after the class and you really should take a private lesson. Me at my academy, I kind of like to answer questions as much as students want to know because for me, I feel like it's mutually beneficial. I want them to get better and they want to get better. And I feel like it's a good example for like the other students. Hey, like if your head instructor is black belt and he's taking the time to literally take you aside and trying to help you fix things in your game, then maybe you should probably do that to the belts below you and so on and so forth. So I kind of do that as an example, hoping that, a lot of there'll be a trickle down effect with my students, right? And by and large, that happens. So I would say, whether you need to study on your own or you need to pick your instructor's brains, make sure you flesh out your entire game. And keep a notebook, man. When stuff happens in training, you're going to go home and you're going to forget. You're going to be, what was that thing that I realized? What was that thing that I needed to work on? Write it down because you're going to forget all that stuff, and then it's going to take you a lot longer to learn stuff than if you're doing it in a very methodical fashion. And that would be my main advice for developing a game plan. And that's a game plan for learning. Game plans for offense and defense, that's very contextual. So that would be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I really love your advice there about keeping a notebook. And like what you said, I've noticed many times where, I think I have something down and I just learned it and I don't write it down and I try to do it the next day and I forgot everything. So I've been trying to do much better at keeping a notebook myself, and I've noticed that's helped my game out big time. So I think that's a great advice right there.
It does, and I try it. Like it's not as hard for my students because I set up a student site called tgstudent.com. And it's just basically every class that we teach, the video goes on the site. It's organized like all those other big sites that you see, the Mendes Brothers and MG in Action, all that kind of stuff by position, right? And it's one of those things where students can just go in and see the different moves. So they can kind of go back and view it. But I would just suggest that if you're not at an academy that has something like that, maybe get a membership to MG in Action, like Marcelo's site, or the Mendes Brothers site. Andre Galvo has a site like that. And they're really cheap. I mean, they're $25 a month or something like that. For my students that are in the advanced program, it's just kind of like it's just free. It comes with a membership. But it's one of those things that it'll help you guys to go and to be able to research stuff that you may not know. And we're living at a time that's unprecedented in jiu-jitsu, where if you want to go and you want to study something, you can go learn from the best people in the entire world. Right at the click of a mouse. So take advantage of that stuff.
Absolutely. It's a great resource that if you use it correctly, it can help you a lot. And but the same thing if students just go in there and constantly try to find new moves and don't follow the direction from their instructors, they get in a little trouble. That's nice that they can see what you are showing. So. Quick question about that. Like, you have your class put on the website. Does it stay up there for like a week and cycle through, or how does that work out?
Yeah, well what it does is basically there are basically two levels of memberships for my students. I don't really have it open to like outside classes or anything else. I only really give it to my students just because it's one of those things. I'm not really trying to make money off of it. It's just kind of like I want to make my students better, so I just do this kind of stuff. But when you, as a member, I have one membership I give free, and that's that each month's curriculum. So all the techniques, those are going to stay up there for 4 weeks. The last 4 weeks in a revolving basis is always going to be up there. But then there's also the full library, where it's just everything that's ever been put up there, like you would see on Marcelo site or the Mendes site or stuff like that. That I charge, I think it's $6 a month or something like that to a student, just so that I can pay for the data transfer that occurs. That's as students are watching this kind of stuff. I don't make money off of it. It just basically pays for itself.
Yeah. That's awesome that you do that for your students, and it's definitely a great learning tool right there for them.
You've talked a little bit about competing, and when you compete, you're very relaxed and you're working your game and stuff like that. But what are some things you do right before you compete to help get you in that state of mind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that one gold medal mental workout will give you some exercises to do, like right before you go on. So you're going to be doing a lot of that stuff. And the other thing is, you just really have to believe in yourself. I mean, either you really need to believe in yourself or you need to kind of drum it up. But you really got to handle any kind of nerves or fear. I just kind of go on there, and what I notice is that your emotions will generally follow what your body does. So if you have a physiology of being timid and afraid, then your emotions can be like that. You got to step out on the mat with confidence, right? You have to be confident when you're fighting, right? Like, I mean, I don't like to try to tell people that they need to act like they're going to kick their opponent's butt or do that kind of stuff. You just need to be confident in yourself, right? And believe in yourself. That's all it is. And as long as you've done your preparation, as long as you've done those exercises and you've been prepared, then a lot of this stuff should come natural to you. Because here's the thing: like let's say you're a white belt and your round is 5 minutes. If you're at your academy and you're training 10-minute rounds, right, and training them so that cardio-wise you can train nonstop hard for 10 minutes without breaking a sweat, that's going to make you confident, right? So, if you're a brown belt and your rounds are 18 minutes, you should be training, 13-minute rounds, such to the point where you're not even tired after 13 minutes, and that's using 70% of your effort at any given moment, right? That's going to make you confident, because what really breaks people is cardio and their lack of confidence in their cardio. But let's say I had unlimited cardio, theoretically. Let's say that I'm going to go and I'm going to fight a world champion and I have unlimited cardio. I'm going to feel pretty darn confident, because that means I can operate at 80% capacity at any given second, and they are not able to if I had unlimited cardio. That's why you see all these UFC fighters getting popped for taking EPO, where it literally does give them unlimited cardio where they're not getting tired. So cardio is a big factor in someone's confidence.
Yeah, I think you do lose a lot of your confidence and self-esteem when you start to break down and get tired, and then especially if the guy that you're rolling with is not experiencing that, it's like he's pouring on more, and if you're breaking down, and it's hard not to fall apart mentally. So having that confidence in your cardio is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, it definitely breaks you mentally.
You mentioned as a blue belt, you were not really one of the best students as far as learning and having the good attitude about training safely and tapping and things like that. But what are some traits of an ideal student that you would see?
I would say humility, number one. Understanding that, listen, I can tell from what somebody emails me when they're inquiring to become a student if this person will even last 4 months. All right? Let me give an example.
Yeah.
All right? A couple months ago, I had a forum submission where the guy's like, I've done Jeet Kune Do, Kung Fu, some Salat, and I've done MMA, so I guess why not try this? I'm like, all right, this dude's going to be out of here in under 30 days, right? And he was, right? He came in, got his butt kicked, and his ego couldn't handle that. I had some guy come in with a purple belt from some other school, right? And the thing is, my academy, I'm very old school with the belts, right? We have phases between white and blue belt, but as far as when you're getting a blue belt and purple and brown, I'm very, very old school, all right? So, if I give out a purple belt at my school, you're pretty much a legit purple belt. That being said, I do take into account age and injuries and stuff like that, and that's a whole other discussion. But general belts, you're going to be a legitimate belt at my school. So this guy came in, and he came at the end of the advanced class, and he was doing the beginner class, and he goes, "Oh, it's a shame." I was, "What's a shame?" He said, "Oh, it's a shame that I'm missing the rolling, because I've done tons of rolling." I'm like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll put you with someone at the end of the foundations class." And when I did it, I put him with a white belt that had been at my academy for 30 days, and the white belt kicked his butt. Guy never came back. So if you don't have humility, it's not going to be a good thing, because you're not going to learn. And let me tell you how it could also affect your game. If your ego is going to make you always stay within your own comfort zone of your own jiu-jitsu game, it's going to hamper your ability. Because, for instance, let's say you're good at, X, Y, and Z techniques, right? And you don't do anything else, right? And you're really good at defending or imposing those sets of techniques on whoever you roll with. One day, you're going to meet somebody who you're not able to do that to, right? And then they're going to make you and stretch you outside of your comfort zone in your grappling ability into areas where, practically speaking, you're not a black belt, right? Practically speaking, maybe you're a purple belt, right? And then you're going to look really bad. So you can't let your ego stifle your own personal progress in jiu-jitsu. So ego is one of the things that you really have to do. I'm about to put a sign on the back door of my academy that says, "Your ego is never too big to leave through this door." It's like one of those things, like, just go out that way. That's one thing. Another trait is someone that really cares about the progress of their training partners just as much as they care about themselves. I had a student when I was that I gave him the blue belt to, and we had severe issues for many different reasons, right? And one of the things that really irritated me about him is that he only cared about himself. He only cared about his own training. He didn't care about his training partners. He didn't care about their progress. And I confronted him about this. And this is what this guy said to me. He goes, "When I step out to compete on the mat, it's not my training partner who's out there competing for me. I'm the one that's out there competing for me. I'm the one that's putting it out on the line. So I got to look out for myself." I kicked this person out of the academy on the spot. Like, if you're that type of person, please do not even walk in, the doors of my academy. If I'm taking my time to make sure that my students are okay and that they're learning and answering their questions, if I'm not cranking submissions on my students and we'll just let them escape from something, you better be doing the same thing, right? Because if you're coming in and you're all about yourself and you're just, want to screw someone's leg up so that you can feel good about yourself, you're gonna be out of the academy, and it's not going to be a friendly "let's leave the academy" either. So, that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be one of those things, right? So, those are real two major traits. You got to be humble, and you got to treat other people the way that you would want to treat yourself, and don't be the know-it-all. Please don't come up to me and tell me, "I like the way that you taught that move, but I saw this other way on YouTube." Please. You're a white belt, you're a blue belt, you're a purple belt. Learn some humility, learn some respect, right? You got to respect the belts above you, right? You have to approach things with an attitude of humility, because you know what? There's a reason why someone's a brown belt and why you're a blue belt, right? And we don't want to have to try to explain this is the correct way. But just take us for our word every once in a while. Try it out. This doesn't happen often, but every once in a while you get that kind of white belt know-it-all who comes in and I've literally had a white belt in the Q&A section where I say, "Does anybody have any questions?" Be like, "Yeah, well, they showed it this other way on YouTube, and is this other way better?" Oh my gosh! Don't even get me started on that. So those things are important. Please wash your Ghees. Do not come in with stinky Ghees. Your training partners don't like it. I don't like it, because you're going to spread staph and ringworm and stuff like that in the academy. Watch your hygiene. Listen, as an instructor, it's very uncomfortable to have that conversation with you about why you smell like crap. So please, don't make me have to have that conversation with you. Please do that. Just make it easy. So those are some really good.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that conversation. It is uncomfortable and awkward, but for some reason, it almost never works. Maybe true. I'm not good at having that, but it's like, it worked for a week, and here we go again. Like, it's hard enough as is, but I got to do it again.
I don't understand that. Why doesn't it work? Like I say it once, and then I'm like, cool. Next week they come in, I get another student going, oh, this guy smells like crap. Next week, this guy smells like crap. And by the fourth time saying something, you're just like, what do I say at this point? You know, it's very awkward.
We talked a little bit about your film history on the last time we had you on talking about your injury. But I'd like to kind of jump in a little bit more and, get off topic a little bit and have some fun. If nobody knows, you're in the movie Sandlot. You've done quite a bit of acting in other different movies and TV. Do you have any funny stories about like behind the scenes activities or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, for people that don't know that, I was in the Sandlot. I played the bully in the film named Phillips. I would always have fights with the Sandlot kids. They cut out a bunch of my scenes too, which I was really upset about when I was 12 years old. But it was a really cool experience. The Sandlot was one of those things that was actually given to me because I was cast in another film, and then they decided to change the lead characters and whatnot, and so I didn't even audition for it. They're just like, here's this role in this film, and I was like, oh, cool, thanks. And it was awesome, man. Like that, the Sandlot was actually this just little area that you'd never ever see between like rows of houses in Salt Lake City, Utah. So it wasn't something that was like you'd see by a road or anything. It was, they actually kind of created it for the movie. And the couple things that people are not realizing is that like the lead character who played Benny the Jet, when he was young, I don't know how old he was, probably like 13 or 14 or something like that, but he was like a real Mac, man. This guy probably had like an illegal, like, 19-year-old girlfriend at the time. And I was like, oh, my God. This guy is, like, playing pool with his girlfriend and all that kind of stuff. The guy who played Porter, who is the ginger freckle-faced kid who I always had fights with in it.
Yeah.
This kid,
the catcher? Was he the catcher on the team?
The catcher, yep.
The catcher kid, yeah. This guy was awesome. He was, his name was Pat, and me and him were pretty friendly during the filming. But man, did they ever like verbally abuse this kid? Like I remember being on the set, and them literally saying, like the director of photography, being like, "Get on your mark, you fat blank toad." I was like, oh my gosh, being like 12 years old.
Yeah, oh man.
Being mean to this kid, like out of nowhere. But then this kid would like talk back and like come back with his own like one-liners, like cursing at like the photography guy. like the same kind of theme that you'd have me with this kid in the film, like he was doing off the camera with like the crew. He was, I'd always have these like witty one-liners and stuff like that. So that was just a weird experience. And, aside from that, man, like, the Sandlot was just such a cool experience. I went on to do other stuff, like, Ghost in the Machine for 20th Century Fox and Born to Be Wild for Warner Brothers, and then, lots of, like, TV movies like The Shining and The Yearling and stuff like that. And I would say one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had was when I was shooting Stephen King's The Shining. Because it was shot in the actual hotel that Stephen King was staying in when, like, the entire novel basically popped into his head. And if you read stuff that, his recollection of this kind of stuff, he'll talk about the fact that, like, he didn't write it on a typewriter or computer. He actually wrote it, handwritten on a pad of paper, because he was staying in this hotel, and all of a sudden this entire story is just, like, in his head. And there was just something about the hotel that he felt was really weird. And so for the remake, for the miniseries, it was actually shot in that hotel. And the hotel was extremely, extremely creepy. It was exactly how you would picture a hotel that would be haunted to be. And what happened was that the lead actor, the one who was playing Jack Nicholson's part, his name is Steven Weber, he actually found this kind of room manifest when he was sneaking around the hotel, like in the back office, which he shouldn't have been doing, apparently, but would literally go room by room, and it would literally tell what happened in each room. And apparently the room that he was staying in, there had been 2 murders and a suicide. And so this guy was literally drinking himself to sleep every night. He was completely freaked out. So I would go and hang out at the bar with him. I wouldn't drink at all because I was underage, but we would just hang out. And he told me about this. And then I would start having these weird experiences because my bed was literally, like if you were laying in my bed, you could actually reach your hand out and like literally grab the knob to the door and open the door. And the way that my room was situated it was at the very end of the hall. So if you open my door, you're just looking down the hall with doors on the right and left-hand side of the different rooms. There's nowhere to go. It's just if you open my door, that's it. It's just a hallway right in front of you. So I would all of a sudden be sleeping, and all of a sudden the knob of my door would start shaking, and I'm a very light sleeper. I'd wake up, open the door, nothing there, right? And this thing would keep happening. So like by the third time this thing happened, I was kind of like just like waiting for it. And there's like one of those things where it happens, immediately open the door, nothing's there. And this other thing that I'm going to tell you guys, I'm kind of reticent to say anything about because people have different ideas about paranormal stuff. And like for me, I don't even necessarily believe in ghosts. I have other ideas about like what causes this type of stuff. But I did have one really terrifying experience that caused me to want to change my room, and it was the fact that when I was sleeping one night, the feeling you get if you're laying down in the bed and then somebody sits on your bed where you can like feel a depression and actually see a depression. That literally happened to me. Where I was sleeping and I feel something and the whole right hand side of my bed, the corner, just like is down, and it kind of you actually see it down, like an indentation right there. And I just kind of felt all of goosebumps all over my body, the hair stand up, and I literally left the room and went downstairs into the lobby and spent the rest of the night in the lobby, and that was pretty much it for me in that hotel. After that point,
I'd be done. And
you have big trucker guys, big union guys doing the same thing. Like I'm not staying here anymore. a lot of weird stuff. I mean, I don't. You can take it for what it's worth. I'm not necessarily a believer in like that kind of like ghost paranormal stuff. I don't really have a concise explanation for it, but it was definitely stuff that was very, very bizarre and was pretty much widespread amongst a lot of the cast. And so that was an interesting thing there. The only other really kind of like funny story, I mean, that's tons, but I mean, as far as in terms of time, I did a film called Born to be Wild, which was this film about this kid and this gorilla that go across country with, this was back in the time of like Free Willy and stuff like that. We're like, hey, if we put a kid and an animal together, it's going to be a big hit, like one of those types of things. And so they put me with a gorilla, which was really this dude in a suit, in a gorilla suit, where his face was controlled by animatronics, right? and so like, for instance, they had to keep this guy in the suit. Like, it would take about 30 minutes to put him in it and 30 minutes to pull him out of it, right? And so one day, like when you're filming a movie, right, here's what happens. Like, there's always this tension between trying to get the shots done so that you can get to lunch on time, so that you can finish on time. Otherwise, you got to pay overtime, and cash gets paid overtime, and all this kind of stuff. So they're always pushing to get certain things done at a certain time to stay on budget, right?
Yeah.
And so this one time, we had to get this scene done before lunchtime. And we literally had like 2 more shots to do. And the guy, his name was Leaf. His name was Leaf, and he was in a gorilla suit. And that by itself was really funny. And he's this real like short dude, and he's in there, and he's getting hot, and it's getting hotter and hotter. And so, literally, with only 1 shot left to go, he's like, "Got to get me out of the suit. Got to get me out. You got to stay in the suit. You got to stay in the suit. You got to get this last shot done." He's like, "Take me out of the suit, man. Take me out of the suit." And I'm sitting there watching this gorilla freaking out, telling him to take him out of the damn suit. And then, literally, the gorilla went ape shit. Literally went ape shit. Started going around the set, throwing stuff, destroying stuff, picking up shit, throwing it down. Literally went ape shit. And I'm sitting there,
man,
laughing and laughing and laughing, and realizing, well, this is so wrong that I'm laughing because this guy's having a panic attack in a gorilla suit because it's so hot. But it was just the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So that being said, that was a pretty interesting experience there. And you know what I'm actually going to do? I decided I'm going to take all the behind the scenes footage of the Sandlot itself, and I'm just going to put it on the the Training Grounds webpage. Like down on the bottom of the kids' webpage, because our parents like that kind of stuff. I'm just going to literally transfer it all from VHS to DVD within the next month and just put it all down there. So if you guys ever want to see like behind the scenes Sandlot footage, I'm going to put it all on there for you guys.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That's cool. You think you'll do it within a month or so?
Yeah, I'm actually going to probably send it away this upcoming week, and however the sooner they get it back, definitely within the next 2 months, but I'm aiming for the next month.
That is awesome. What are some of the scenes? Do you remember them that were cut?
Oh yeah, like we had scenes like where we were going to outside of a movie theater, and we have see what happens is that it wasn't supposed to be this one-time conflict. I was supposed to go, we meet them at several times. So there was one at an amusement park where we meet them and we have words, another at outside a movie theater where we have words, and so just in the interest of time, they cut out 2 of the scenes.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to that. Send me an email or let me know when you do that, and we'll mention it here and send everybody to that way, because it's such a great movie, and if you saw it as a kid growing up, you're gonna love it. Yeah. So
will do.
That is awesome. Looking forward to those behind the scenes clips. Okay, well, appreciate you talking with us. How could somebody get a hold of you if they're looking to train with you, or they want to see what you're up to, or?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, my personal phone number, and I use this for my business anyway, is 201-290-2096. That's my cell phone, and I use it for business. For email is just Wil, W-I-L with 1 L, at NJ Training Grounds. 2 G's. The full word training, and then the full word grounds. NJ for New Jersey. Wil at njtraininggrounds.com. And that's also the website, njtraininggrounds.com as well. It's a pleasure to hear from anybody.
All right. I'll put the website up on for a link there. I'll probably leave your phone number out so somebody has to actually listen to it to find your phone number.
That's true. I might get a bunch of crazy people.
Yeah. That's good. That's nice of you to give your phone number to anybody who is interested in getting with you. That's really nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we really appreciate you coming on our show again for the second time. We appreciate it. And I tell you, I learned a lot just talking to you today. And just from the talk, I can tell you it's going to help my game. And that's the nice thing about this sport, is I don't necessarily just have to be out on the mat rolling with you to learn stuff. I'm learning stuff just talking to you. So thank you.
My pleasure. Glad you feel that way.
All right. Yep. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Great. Take care, guys.
All right. You too. Big thank you again to Wil Horneff for coming on and spending some time with us and sharing his knowledge. And Gary and I both learned a lot on this one.
Yeah, I was kind of telling Byron, almost felt like I had a private lesson right there. I know from just listening to his philosophy and advice that I'm definitely going to become I'll definitely be a better grappler after today.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about doing this. We get to talk to these guys. Be sure to catch us next week, guys. We'll have the quote of the week will be presented by Wil, so that'll be kind of fun. He's got a great one. Yep,
great one, and you get a double dose of Wil, so you can't beat that.
So, yep, it's a Theodore Roosevelt quote. We got lucky because it's long and he reads it like he's read scripts, like a professional. I can't read quotes. Did you listen to the quote I read today, Gary? I mumbled through the whole thing. He reads it like a professional, and that's nice.
After the interview, Byron and I both looked at each other, and the first thing we said was like, "Man, did you hear how he read that quote?" He was like, "Not only this guy's a black belt, he's a black belt in acting too." And Byron and I are like, "Yeah, we're going to be so monotone if we say it." And I felt like I was just, at the theater. I just watched a professional.
So we'll strive to get a little bit better in the future, but it's a ways away.
Yeah, maybe we can hire Will to give us some acting lessons and to help us out.
Some reading lessons.
Reading lessons. There we
go. Yep. I'd like to thank again our sponsor, Fujisports.com. If you need a Ghee or no Ghee equipment or gear or clothing, check them out first, and let them know that we sent you their way in the little comment section that you like the podcast. It means a lot to us.
And I tell you, we wear it every day, and I just love their products. So Fujisports.com.
If you'd like to help the show out, we'd appreciate it a lot if you go to the iTunes or on Stitcher and give the show a 5-star review. We like reading the comments. We read all the reviews, and it means a lot, and they do help get the word out about the show. As far as that goes, if you want to give us an email, bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we will see. We see all the emails that come through, so that's an easy way to get a hold of us.
Yeah, and if you or any of your training partners have a blog or written articles, don't be afraid to send that to us. We can use that as the article of the week, and we'd rather use one of our listeners' article than one we find ourselves. So if you have something, don't hesitate to send it to us. We'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Or if you have a quote of the week.
Yeah, definitely. We'll
send it our way. We're always looking for quotes, and Will's doing it next week, but I guarantee you there'll be another week, and we'll be scrambling for the quote. So don't hesitate to help us out and send us a quote of the week. And if you're on Facebook, check out the Facebook page. Posting there fairly regularly, and it's a good way to keep up with the podcast and try to have some semi-motivational stuff on there and some kind of funny stuff, depending on what we have. Last week I had Mario breaking his neck as he tried to break some bricks.
We got to have funny stuff to go with your motivational stuff. It's we got to laugh sometimes. Sometimes I don't think people laugh enough. We need to laugh and have fun.
Oh, another thing I was going to say for the listeners here. If you're in the area of Wichita, Kansas, which isn't the biggest centralized hub in the world, but if you happen to be coming by, whether on business or traveling through, and you're here for a day or two, send us an email, bjjbrick@gmail.com, and one of us will probably be able to train with you.
Yeah, we'd love to train with you.
So travel with your gi, or bring your shorts, and do a little no-gi, whatever you do.
Doesn't matter.
If you're in town, get a hold of us. We'll be happy to get on the mat with you.
We'd love that. We'd love to learn from you.
Yep, and train with you, and
become friends.
Yep,
that's what it's all about.
So we'll catch you next week, guys. Hope you had a good time. I know we did.
We appreciate you listening, and thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.